The massive space station hung in the void like a jewel made of metal and light. It was bigger than most moons and had been the center of galactic power for 3,000 years. Today, the Galactic Council chamber buzzed with fear instead of the usual calm debate. Ambassador Velther of the Centauri Federation stood at the center of the great hall. His blue skin had turned pale, and his forearms shook as he held up a datapad. Around him, representatives from 47 different species sat in their floating chairs, all watching the horrific images on the main screen. Another star system was dying. The fourth one this month. The Kepler-9 system is gone, Velther announced, his voice cracking. All 7 planets. 15 billion souls. The Vex consumed everything in less than 6 hours. On the screen, they watched the final transmission from Kepler-9. Massive black ships shaped like geometric nightmares swarmed around the system star. Strange beams of energy pulled apart the planets, turning rock and metal into streams of matter that flowed into the ships' hungry mouths. Even the star itself began to dim as the machines drained its power. Counselor Zareth from the Peaceful Harmony world spoke first. How is this possible? Our energy shields should stop any weapon. Their technology adapts, replied General Kethmer of the warrior caste of Rigel. Every time we fire our plasma cannons, they learn. Every time we raise our shields, they find a way through. It's like fighting smoke. The chamber fell silent, except for the quiet hum of the station's life support systems. 3,000 years of peace had made them soft. Their weapons were designed to disable, not destroy. Their ships were built for exploration, not war. When the first Vex ships had appeared from the empty space between galaxies 6 months ago, the Council had tried diplomacy. The machines had responded by eating an entire colony world. High Chancellor Morden, the eldest member of the Council, raised his ancient hand. We have tried everything. Our most powerful fleets cannot even scratch their hulls. Our scientists cannot understand their technology. Our diplomats cannot communicate with them. He paused, looking around the chamber with sad eyes. Perhaps it is time to consider other options. What other options? Demanded Counselor Vexinar from the crystal cities of Altair. We have contacted every member species. None have weapons that can hurt these things. Not every species, Morden said quietly. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Every alien present knew what the old Chancellor meant. There was one species that had been banned from Council space for being too violent, too dangerous, too unpredictable. A species from a world so harsh that it had created the most aggressive creatures the galaxy had ever seen. You cannot be serious, Velther gasped. The humans? The Deathworlders? They are savages, spat General Kethmore. They kill their own kind for sport. They fight wars over resources they could easily share. They built weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, then built more, Morden nodded slowly. Yes, and that is exactly why we need them. The debate that followed was fierce but short. Every member present had seen the recordings from human space. Their ships were covered in armor instead of shields. Their weapons threw solid metal instead of energy beams. They had actually fought wars in space, something no civilized species had done for thousands of years. When the vote came, it passed. By the narrowest margin in Council history, 24 votes in favor, 23 against. Commander Jake Morrison was drinking coffee in the mess hall of the USS Liberty when the communication officer found him. Lieutenant Kate Williams looked worried as she handed him the datapad. Sir, you need to see this. It's from the Galactic Council. Jake nearly choked on his coffee. The Council hadn't spoken to humanity in 30 years, not since they had declared human space off limits due to excessive aggressive tendencies. He read the message twice before he believed it. Kate, get Ben Parker up here, now. Chief Engineer Ben Parker arrived 5 minutes later, still wiping grease from his hands. What's the emergency, Commander? Jake handed him the datapad. Read this and tell me I'm not dreaming. Ben's eyes grew wide as he read. Holy hell, they're actually asking for our help? Gets better, Kate said, pulling up a star chart. Look at this, 17 systems gone in 6 months. The Vex are moving toward the galactic core, consuming everything in their path. The three humans stared at the tactical display. Red marks showed where entire civilizations had vanished. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The machines were not random destroyers. They were following a plan, moving from system to system in a careful pattern that would eventually consume the entire galaxy. "What do we know about these Vex?" Ben asked. Kate pulled up another file. "Not much. They appeared from outside the galaxy 6 months ago. Their ships are made of some kind of self-repairing metal. Energy weapons don't work against them. They convert everything they consume into more ships and processing power." "Sounds like a machine intelligence," Jake said. "Probably thinks like a computer. The Council's tried everything. Plasma cannons, ion beams, quantum torpedoes, nothing works. Their ships just absorb the energy and get stronger." Jake was quiet for a long moment, thinking. 30 years ago, the Council had called humans monsters. They had said human weapons were too crude, too brutal for civilized space. They had banned kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, and nuclear devices as barbaric. Now those same aliens were begging for help. "Set course for Council space," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed, sir? Shouldn't we contact Earth Command first?" Kate asked. Jake shook his head. "We'll send a message on the way. But if these things are eating star systems, every hour counts." He looked at the tactical display again, at all those red marks where billions had died. "Besides, the Council made it clear they don't want diplomats. They want warriors." The USS Liberty turned toward the galactic core, its engines burning bright in the darkness. In the distance, stars continued to die as the Vex consumed everything in their path. But for the first time in months, help was coming. The Deathworlders were answering the call. The massive space station hung in the void like a jewel made of metal and light. It was bigger than most moons and had been the center of galactic power for 3,000 years. Today, the Galactic Council chamber buzzed with fear instead of the usual calm debate. Ambassador Velthor of the Centauri Federation stood at the center of the Great Hall. His blue skin had turned pale, and his arms shook as he held up a datapad. Around him, representatives from 47 different species sat in their floating chairs, all watching the horrific images on the main screen. Another star system was dying. The fourth one this month. "The Kepler-9 system is gone," Velthor announced, his voice cracking. "All 7 planets. 15 billion souls. The Vex consumed everything in less than 6 hours." On the screen, they watched the final transmission from Kepler-9. Massive black ships shaped like geometric nightmares swarmed around the system's star. Strange beams of energy pulled apart the planets, turning rock and metal into streams of matter that flowed into the ship's hungry mouths. Even the star itself began to dim as the machines drained its power. Counselor Zareth from the Peaceful Harmony world spoke first. "How is this possible?" "Our energy shields should stop any weapon. Their technology adapts," replied General Kethmer of the warrior caste of Rigel. "Every time we fire our plasma cannons, they learn. Every time we raise our shields, they find a way through. It's like fighting smoke." The chamber fell silent, except for the quiet hum of the station's life support systems. 3,000 years of peace had made them soft. Their weapons were designed to disable, not destroy. Their ships were built for exploration, not war. When the first Vex ships had appeared from the empty space between galaxies 6 months ago, the Council had tried diplomacy. The machines had responded by eating an entire colony world. High Chancellor Morden, the eldest member of the Council, raised his ancient hand. "We have tried everything. Our most powerful fleets cannot even scratch their hulls. Our scientists cannot understand their technology. Our diplomats cannot communicate with them." He paused, looking around the chamber with sad eyes. "Perhaps it is time to consider other options." "What other options?" demanded Councillor Vexinar from the crystal cities of Altair. "We have contacted every member species. None have weapons that can hurt these things." "Not every species," Morden said quietly. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Every alien present knew what the old Chancellor meant. There was one species that had been banned from Council space for being too violent, too dangerous, too unpredictable. A species from a world so harsh that it had created the most aggressive creatures the galaxy had ever seen. "You cannot be serious?" Velther gasped. "The humans? The Deathworlders? They are savages," spat General Kethmore. "They kill their own kind for sport. They fight wars over resources they could easily share. They built weapons capable of destroying their entire planet, then built more." Morden nodded slowly. "Yes, and that is exactly why we need them." The debate that followed was fierce but short. Every member present had seen the recordings from human space. Their ships were covered in armor instead of shields. Their weapons, through solid metal instead of energy beams. They had actually fought wars in space. Admiral Lisa Carter stood in the center of the United Earth Defense Council chamber, her uniform crisp and her expression grim. The circular room was packed with representatives from every major nation and colony world. Holographic displays showed star charts with spreading red zones where the Vex had consumed entire systems. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Carter began, 30 years ago, the Galactic Council called us barbarians. They said our weapons were too crude, our methods too violent. They banned us from their space and left us to rot in our corner of the galaxy," murmurs rippled through the assembled crowd. Everyone remembered the humiliation Earth had reached, for the stars only to be slapped down by aliens who thought they were better. "Now those same aliens are begging for our help," Carter continued. "The Vex machines have eaten 17 of their systems. Their energy weapons bounce off like raindrops. Their peaceful philosophy means nothing to machines that see all organic life as fuel." President Alex Thompson leaned forward in his chair. "What exactly are they asking for, Admiral? Military assistance? Ships, weapons, and personnel to fight a war they cannot win alone." Carter activated a hologram showing the latest intelligence. Reports: the Vex are not random destroyers. They follow a pattern. They target industrial worlds first, then agricultural planets, finally population centers. They're building something massive in the dark space beyond the galaxy. Senator Maria Rodriguez from the Mars colonies stood up. "Why should we help them? They rejected us. Let them face the consequences of their arrogance." "Because the Vex won't." "Stop at Council space," replied General Robert Hayes, head of Sol Defense Command. "Our analysis shows they'll reach human territory within 2 years. We can fight them now with allies or fight them later alone." The debate that followed was fierce. Some representatives wanted revenge for 30 years of isolation. Others argued for staying neutral and strengthening Earth's defenses. But Admiral Carter had prepared for this moment her entire career. "I propose Operation Starforge," she announced, activating another hologram. "Full military deployment to Council space. We show the galaxy what human warfare really looks like." In the depths of the Luna Military Research Facility, Dr. Nina Ross worked frantically in her laboratory. Around her, teams of scientists and engineers rushed between workstations covered with experimental weapons and armor designs. Project Hellfire had been humanity's secret response to galactic rejection. If the aliens thought human weapons were too primitive, they would show them what truly advanced warfare looked like. "The kinetic penetrators are ready," reported her assistant Dr. Tim Clark. "Depleted uranium cores with tungsten tips. They'll punch through any known shield technology." Nina nodded, examining the sleek projectiles. Each one was no bigger than her thumb, but carried enough kinetic energy to crack a battleship's hull. "What about the electromagnetic pulse warheads?" "Tested and ready. The Vex rely on quantum processors. These pulses should disrupt their command networks long enough for follow-up attacks." "Good, load everything onto the Vengeance. Captain Mitchell will need every advantage we can give him." Captain Steve Mitchell walked through the hangar bay of the USS Vengeance, humanity's most advanced warship. The massive dreadnought stretched for 2 kilometers, its hull covered in armor plating instead of the energy shields other species preferred. Weapon turrets bristled along its sides, each one capable of throwing metal projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. "She's beautiful, isn't she?" said Lieutenant Amy Foster, his tactical officer. "All that firepower just waiting to be unleashed." Mitchell nodded. The Vengeance was different from Council ships in every way that mattered. Where alien vessels relied on energy weapons and shields, the Vengeance carried kinetic cannons and solid armor. Where alien ships were sleek and graceful, the Vengeance was angular and brutal. It looked exactly like what it was, a weapon designed to kill. "Status report, Lieutenant," Mitchell ordered. "All systems green, sir. The Ares targeting system is online and calibrated. Antimatter torpedoes are loaded and ready. We can launch within the hour." Chief Petty Officer Ryan Clark approached from the weapons bay. "Sir, the new kinetic rounds are loaded. Dr. Ross says they'll crack anything the Vex can throw at us." "Let's hope she's right," Mitchell replied. "Because once we reach Council space, there's no turning back." Across Earth's solar system, the greatest military mobilization in human history was taking place. Shipyards that had been building exploration vessels suddenly switched to producing warships. Factories that made mining equipment began manufacturing weapons. Colony militias were called up and equipped with the latest combat gear. The sole defense fleet assembled near Mars, a sight that would have terrified the Galactic Council if they could see it. 150 warships hung in space like metal sharks, their hulls dark and predatory. Each ship carried weapons that the Council had banned as too dangerous for civilized warfare. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of her flagship, the USS Retribution, watching as the last ships joined the formation. Beside her, Captain Ellen Brooks reviewed the tactical plans one final time. "The Council won't know what hit them," Brooks said with satisfaction. 30 years of building in secret, and now we finally get to show the galaxy what human engineering can accomplish. "This isn't about showing off," Carter replied. "This is about survival. The Vex are unlike anything the galaxy has faced before. If we fail, everyone dies." The Admiral turned to her communications officer. "Send the message to all ships. Operation Starforge is a go. We jump to Council space in 1 hour." Across the fleet, crews made final preparations. Weapons were charged, armor was checked, and prayers were said. Many of these ships would not return home. Many of these crews would die in the dark between stars. But they were human, and humans had never backed down from a fight, no matter how hopeless it seemed. As the countdown reached 0, 150 human warships disappeared into hyperspace, carrying with them the hopes and fury of an entire species. The galaxy had called for help, and the Deathworlders were coming with steel and fire behind them. Earth's shipyards continued working around the clock, building more ships for the war that was just beginning. Humanity had been rejected once. They would not be rejected again. The Altair defense line stretched across 3 star systems like a wall of metal and light. Thousands of Council ships hung in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with energy shields and plasma cannons. It was the last major stronghold between the Vex and the galactic core, where billions of civilians waited in terror. Admiral Zephahar of the Centauri Federation watched his sensor displays with growing dread. The Vex fleet was coming. Hundreds of black geometric shapes moved through space like a plague of mechanical locusts, consuming everything in their path. His own fleet outnumbered them 3 to 1, but numbers meant nothing when your weapons could not hurt the enemy. "Sir, we're detecting hyperspace signatures," reported his communications officer. "Unknown fleet approaching from human space." Zephahar's forearms tensed. The barbarians actually came. On his main screen, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace in a ragged formation that made every Council officer wince. Their ships looked wrong somehow. Dark hulls covered in angular armor plating instead of smooth energy barriers. Weapon turrets that looked like ancient siege engines rather than elegant beam arrays. "Admiral, the human commander is requesting permission to join the defense line," his officer reported. "Denied," Zephahar snapped. "I will not have savages disrupting our battle formations with their crude tactics." Captain Steve Mitchell stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, listening to the Council's rejection with grim amusement. Beside him, Lieutenant Amy Foster shook her head in disgust. "They still think they're better than us," she said, "even with their backs to the wall." "Let them keep their formations," Mitchell replied. "We'll show them how Deathworlders fight." The Vex. Attack began at dawn by the Altair system's primary star. The machine ships moved in perfect coordination, their black hulls absorbing the Council's plasma fire like sponges soaking up water. Energy shields that had protected the galaxy for millennia simply vanished when Vex-cutting beams touched them. Council ships began dying immediately. The beautiful formations broke apart as captains tried desperately to avoid the geometric nightmares tearing through their ranks. Plasma cannons fired uselessly against hulls that adapted to every energy frequency. Ion beams were absorbed and converted into power for the Vex weapons. Admiral Zephyr watched his fleet crumble in less than an hour. All ships fall back to secondary positions. Repeat, fall back. That was when the humans attacked. Captain Mitchell brought the Vengeance around in a sharp turn that would have crushed any Council crew with acceleration forces. His ship dove straight into the Vex formation, kinetic cannons blazing. Solid tungsten. Rounds moving at 30% of light speed slammed into the nearest machine ship. For the first time in 6 months, a Vex vessel actually took damage. "Direct hit," Amy reported with excitement. "Their hull armor is cracking." "All ships, focus. Fire on damaged targets," Mitchell ordered over the fleet network. "Show these machines what real weapons can do." The human fleet scattered into small groups, each one attacking from a different angle. They used no formation, followed no plan except to hit hard and move fast. Kinetic rounds punched through Vex armor that had shrugged off energy weapons. Electromagnetic pulse warheads disrupted the machine ship's quantum processors, leaving them vulnerable to follow-up attacks. Sergeant Maria Gonzalez led her boarding team through the twisted corridors of a damaged Vex processing ship. The interior was a nightmare of organic and mechanical components fused together in ways that hurt to look at. Cables made from living tissue carried data between crystal processing nodes that pulsed with their own light. "This is disgusting," muttered Corporal Jack Murphy, checking his rifle's ammunition counter. "They're using people as computer parts." "Focus on the mission," Maria ordered. "We need intelligence on their technology." They found what they were looking for in the ship's central core. A massive crystalline structure hummed with quantum energy, surrounded by banks of organic processors that had once been living brains. Maria planted explosive charges around the core while her team downloaded everything they could from the ship's memory banks. "Got it," reported tech specialist Lisa Brown. "Their entire tactical database is on this drive. Then let's get out of here before this thing repairs itself," Maria said. The boarding team fought their way back to their shuttle as the Vex ship's automated defenses came online. Mechanical drones shaped like metal spiders swarmed the corridors, but human reflexes and kinetic weapons proved superior to alien technology designed to fight energy beings. Back in space, the battle was turning. The human fleet's hit-and-run tactics had destroyed 30 Vex ships and damaged dozens more, but the cost was high. Nearly half the human vessels were destroyed or crippled, their crews dead or dying in the cold vacuum of space. Admiral Zephyr watched in amazement as human ships continued fighting even after taking damage that would have destroyed any Council vessel. One destroyer, with its entire forward section missing, still fired its remaining weapons. A cruiser leaking atmosphere from a dozen holes refused evacuation orders and kept attacking. "They're insane," breathed his tactical officer. "No," Zephyr replied quietly. "They're warriors." The Vex began to retreat for the first time since their invasion began. Their quantum processors could not understand human tactics. Every simulation predicted that organic beings would flee when faced with certain death, but humans seemed to fight harder when the odds were worst. Captain Mitchell watched the enemy withdrawal with satisfaction. His ship was badly damaged, his crew exhausted, but they had proven something important. The Vex could be hurt, they could be killed. And most importantly, they could be frightened. Signal the Council fleet, he ordered. The line holds. Admiral Zephyr received the human transmission with a mixture of respect and shame. These barbarians had done what his advanced civilization could not. They had stopped the unstoppable and bought time for the galaxy. Send a message to the human commander, he told his communications officer. Request permission to coordinate our remaining forces under his tactical command. Sir? The officer asked in shock. You heard me. The Deathworlders have earned the right to lead this battle. The Altair defense line held, but just barely. 30% of the human fleet was gone, along with thousands of brave men and women who had died fighting monsters from beyond the stars. But they had proven that the Vex were not invincible. More importantly, they had earned the respect of species who had spent 30 years calling them savages. The galaxy was learning that sometimes civilization needed barbarians to survive. Dr. Nina Ross stood in the captured Vex processing chamber, her team working frantically around the alien technology. The crystalline cores hummed with quantum energy while organic processors that had once been living brains pulsed with disturbing rhythm. 3 weeks had passed since the Battle of Altair, and human scientists were finally beginning to understand their enemy. The quantum prediction algorithms are fascinating, Dr. Ross explained to the mixed group of human and alien researchers. The Vex machines analyze every possible tactical response and choose the most efficient counter. But there's a flaw in their programming. Admiral Zephyr leaned forward, his forearms crossed in concentration. Since the battle, the Centauri commander had worked closely with human forces, learning their methods. What kind of flaw? They assume rational behavior, replied Dr. Tim Clark, Nina's assistant. Every simulation they run expects enemies to preserve themselves when faced with overwhelming odds. They cannot predict irrational sacrifice. The revelation changed everything. Human tactics worked not because they were superior, but because they were insane by galactic standards. The willingness to accept casualties, to fight hopeless battles, to die for abstract concepts like honor and duty. These were alien ideas to machines that valued only efficiency. Captain Lavarhaze stood in the briefing room of the assault carrier USS Defiance, addressing a mixed crew of humans and aliens. Her ship had been specially modified for boarding operations, its hull packed with assault pods and electromagnetic pulse weapons. Listen up, people, she began, gesturing to the tactical display. We've identified a weakness in Vex ship design. Their command centers are heavily shielded against energy weapons but poorly protected against physical assault. Lieutenant Commander Rick Foster, her tactical officer, activated a hologram showing the interior of a Vex vessel. The machines never expected anyone crazy enough to board their ships in person. Their internal defenses are designed to stop energy beings, not soldiers with guns. A Centauri warrior named Velkath raised one of his arms. Captain Hayes, my people are not accustomed to close combat in vacuum. How do we fight in such conditions? Lavra smiled grimly. That's where human training comes in. We grew up fighting in environments that would kill most species. Vacuum combat is just another day at the office for us. The mixed human-alien boarding teams began training immediately. Humans taught their alien allies how to fight in zero gravity, how to breach hull armor with shaped charges, and most importantly, how to keep fighting when everything went wrong. Colonel Don Wright watched the training exercises from the observation deck, noting how quickly the aliens adapted to human methods. The proud Centauri warriors learned to use cover and concealment. The peaceful Harmony World's diplomats discovered they could pull triggers when their homes were threatened. It's remarkable, said Major Ellen Brooks, his second in command. 6 months ago, these species had never fired a shot in anger. Now they're becoming soldiers. Desperation is a powerful teacher, Wright replied. The Vex gave them no choice but to adapt or die. The first joint boarding operation took place near the Rigel system. A damaged Vex harvester ship had been isolated from the main fleet, its quantum processors disrupted by electromagnetic pulse weapons. Captain Hayes led the assault herself, guiding 3 boarding pods through the machine ship's defensive fire. Inside the alien vessel, human marines and centauri. Warriors fought side by side through corridors filled with mechanical horrors. Vex repair drones shaped like metal spiders attacked from every direction, their cutting tools designed to slice through hull plating. Sergeant Bobby Martinez kicked open a sealed door and sprayed automatic rifle fire into the chamber beyond. Beside him, a Centauri warrior named Kexler used his 4 arms to wield both a human assault rifle and his traditional plasma sword. "These machines are tougher than they look," Kexler shouted over the sound of gunfire. "That's why we use bigger guns," Martinez replied. Pulling a grenade from his belt, the boarding teams fought their way to the ship's central core, where massive quantum processors controlled the vessel's operations. Following human doctrine, they placed electromagnetic pulse charges at key points throughout the computer system. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Paul Evans was making his own breakthrough in space combat tactics. The pilot had discovered that Vex central processing nodes were vulnerable to a specific type of quantum disruption that could only be achieved by detonating antimatter charges at precise coordinates within their command ships. "The timing has to be perfect," Evans explained to his squadron during the pre-flight briefing. "We have exactly 3 seconds between the initial EMP burst and when their backup systems come online. Miss that window and we're dead." The technique required a level of precision that most species could not achieve. Council pilots, trained for peaceful exploration, lacked the reflexes needed for such dangerous maneuvers. But human pilots, trained in Earth's hazardous flight simulators where a single mistake meant death, proved capable of the impossible. Evans led his squadron in a diving attack against a Vex command ship, their fighters weaving through defensive fire that could vaporize them in an instant. At exactly the right moment, he triggered his antimatter torpedo. Watching as the quantum disruption cascade tore through the enemy vessel's command structure. "Target destroyed," he reported with satisfaction. "The Big Ugly is going dark." Across the galaxy, human commanders began training Council forces in the art of acceptable losses. The concept was alien to most galactic species, but desperate circumstances forced them to adapt. Mixed units began achieving victories that had seemed impossible just months before. General Hayes watched the tactical reports with growing optimism. Human doctrine was spreading through the Council fleets like wildfire. Ships that had once retreated at the first sign of damage now fought until their hulls cracked. Crews that had valued their own lives above all else learned to sacrifice for the greater good. "The aliens are becoming more human," Major Brooks observed. "No," Hayes replied. "They're becoming warriors. There's a difference. The tide of war was turning. Vex ships that had once seemed invincible now faced enemies they could not predict or understand. Human tactics, backed by alien resources, and determination began pushing the machine fleets back from conquered systems, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. The real test would come when they faced the source of the Vex invasion, the massive construct in dark space where the machines had built their central intelligence. That battle would require everything humans had learned about warfare and everything their alien allies had learned about being human. The Vex Prime node hung in the darkness between galaxies like a nightmare made real. 12 consumed star systems had been converted into a single massive construct that stretched for light years in every direction. Processing stations the size of planets pulsed with quantum energy while mechanical shipyards manufactured new Vex vessels every hour. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of her flagship, studying the tactical displays with grim determination. Around her, the largest fleet in galactic history waited for orders. Human warships hung alongside Centauri battle cruisers and Harmony World's hospital ships, united by desperation and hope. "Intelligence reports from our scout ships," reported Captain Ellen Brooks. "The construct is defended by over 10 million Vex units. Reality warping technology protects the central core. Conventional assault is impossible." "Good thing we're not conventional," Carter replied. Behind her, the USS Ragnarok waited in formation, its hull gleaming with antimatter containment fields. The prototype vessel was humanity's secret weapon, built around a controlled singularity drive that could tear holes in space itself. "Admiral, the Council fleet is requesting permission to begin the siege," Brooks continued. Carter shook her head. "No siege. We end this today, one way or another." Colonel Downright received his final briefing in the assault transport USS Thunder. Around him, the best soldiers from 12 different species checked their weapons and said their prayers. The mission was simple in concept, impossible in execution. They had to fight their way through the outer shells of the prime node and clear a path for the Ragnarok's approach. "Listen up," Wright addressed his mixed force of humans and aliens. "The Vex have had 6 months to study our tactics. They know. We're coming. But they still don't understand what makes us fight." Sergeant Tony Rodriguez raised his hand. "What's that, sir?" "They think we fight because we have to," Wright replied. "They don't understand that humans fight because we choose to. That's the difference between a machine and a warrior." The assault began with humanity's trademark chaos. Instead of the elegant formations favored by Council forces, human ships scattered in all directions, each one following its own attack plan. Electromagnetic pulse weapons disrupted Vex coordination while kinetic rounds punched through armor. That had never been designed to stop solid projectiles. Captain Steve Mitchell brought the USS Vengeance in low over the construct's surface, his guns blazing at defensive installations. The ship had been patched and repaired so many times it looked like a flying scrapyard, but it still fought with the fury of its crew. "All weapons, continuous fire," Mitchell ordered. "Don't give them time to adapt." Lieutenant Amy Foster coordinated. The ship's targeting computers, sending tungsten rounds into Vex processing stations with deadly precision. "Sir, we're taking heavy damage. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. "Keep firing," Mitchell replied. "We're not here to survive. We're here to win." The boarding teams fought their way through nightmare corridors filled with organic computers and mechanical horrors. Colonel Wright led from the front, his assault rifle cutting down Vex repair drones while his mixed unit of humans and aliens followed close behind. "The central command node is through that door," reported Lieutenant Sam Wilson, checking his scanner. "But it's heavily defended." Wright pulled a satchel charge from his pack. "When has that ever stopped us?" The explosion tore through the Vex defenses, opening a path to the construct's control center. Inside, massive crystalline processors hummed with the collected intelligence of consumed civilizations. Wright's team began placing electromagnetic pulse charges while fighting off waves of mechanical defenders. "Charges set," called out Corporal Linda Davis. "We've got 2 minutes to get out of here." But Wright was staring at the central processor, where millions of stored minds flickered in quantum suspension. Every person the Vex had consumed was still alive, trapped in digital hell. "Change of plans, we're staying." "Sir?" Davis asked in confusion. "Someone has to make sure these charges detonate. The Vex might find a way to disarm them remotely." Wright checked his rifle's ammunition counter. "Get your people out of here." "That's an order." Admiral Carter watched the tactical display as her fleet tore through the Vex defenses. Thousands of ships were dying, but they were buying time for the Ragnarok to reach its target. The prototype vessel pushed through impossible defensive fire, its hull blazing with energy from a million Vex weapons. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Ragnarok," reported the communications officer. "Put it through." Admiral Gary Thompson's voice crackled over the radio from the doomed ship. "Admiral Carter, this is Thompson. We're beginning our final approach. The Singularity Drive is charged and ready." "Understood, Admiral. It's been an honor serving with you." "The honor was ours," Thompson replied. "When the Council called for help 30 years ago, they didn't want diplomats or philosophers. They wanted warriors. Today, they got them." The Ragnarok punched through the final defensive layer, its hull cracking under impossible stress. Inside the ship, Admiral Thompson and his skeleton crew worked frantically to align the Singularity Drive with the construct's central core. "Dark matter payload armed," reported Chief Engineer Beth Murphy. "We have alignment." "Fire," Thompson ordered. The controlled Singularity tore through space and time, creating a cascade reaction that spread through the Vex network like wildfire. The collective intelligence that had consumed star systems screamed as its quantum processors overloaded and burned. Across the construct, processing stations went dark as the machine consciousness finally died. Colonel Wright felt the explosion through the deck plating as his charges detonated. Around him, the Vex repair drones suddenly stopped moving, their controlling intelligence gone. He and his remaining team had done the impossible. They had freed the trapped minds of billions. The war was over, but the cost had been terrible. Admiral Carter watched the casualty reports with heavy heart. 60% of the human fleet was gone. Hundreds of thousands of brave men and women had died fighting monsters from beyond the stars, but they had saved the galaxy. 3 months later, Admiral Mitchell stood before the Galactic Council in their great chamber. The aliens who had once called humans barbaric now looked at him with respect and gratitude. The formal admission of Earth to the Council was just a ceremony. Humanity had already earned their place through steel and fire. The galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid, said High Chancellor Morden. You answered our call when we had no right to ask. Mitchell nodded gravely. We didn't fight for your gratitude. We fought because it was the right thing to do. What does humanity want in return for this service? Asked Admiral Zephyr. Respect, Mitchell replied simply. Mutual cooperation, and the understanding that when the next threat comes from the dark, you know who to call. The Council voted unanimously to accept Earth as an equal member. The Deathworlders had proven themselves the galaxy's greatest protectors. The irony was not lost on anyone present. The species once banned for being too violent had become the guardians of galactic peace. When the galaxy cried out, the Deathworlders had answered with steel and fire. And the stars would never be the same.